It's a magazine that my wife used to subscribe to. She doesn't any longer. But it used to be called What is Enlightenment? It's recently changed its name, I think, to Enlightenext, for reasons I'll perhaps go into. But I always found it slightly odd that it was called What is Enlightenment? Because, it's a kind of new age magazine with, various interviews with pundits and pandits and gurus and lots and lots of advertisements for every kind of alternative therapy and alternative kind of self-help methodology. And here I should say, when I'm using the word alternative, I'm completely with the empirical science. The alternative therapy is the word for therapy, it doesn't work. But this What is Enlightenment magazine always struck me as quite funny, because the title of it, of course, What is Enlightenment, is the name of quite a famous essay by Kant, I think, Das ist Aufklärung, which was an appeal by the philosopher Kant, not for a kind of woolly New Age mysticism version of enlightenment, but of a clarity of thought and a sweeping away of superstition and a sweeping away of all of those methods of so-called knowledge gathering, which were exactly of the type to be found between the pages of What is Enlightenment magazine. So it was always slightly ironic as far as I could see. But as I said, now it's changed its name to Enlightenext, and is more clearly, it's more clearly come out as what it is, I suppose, really, which is basically a vehicle for Andrew Cohen, the kind of guru behind it. His organisation is called Enlightenexт, and now it's very clearly, it wasn't said, but now it's very clearly overtly the mouthpiece for the Enlightenext organisation, which is a strange organisation. I went to a couple of meetings of Enlightenext in Manchester, just a small group of people meeting in a Quaker meeting house up there. People not too dissimilar to myself, people who are quite interested in this area, stuff to do with evolution, stuff to do with what the word spiritual might comes with, what the word spiritual might mean, that kind of thing. But there's something funny about that, about the relationship between that and Andrew Cohen, I found. There's one or two people who ran these meetings in Manchester were clearly, very familiar with Andrew Cohen's writings, had been to the various seminars that he does, were like paid-up members of the Andrew Cohen fan club in a way, really, I guess. And the way he presents himself, even though he looks a bit like a German porn star, the way he presents himself is very much as a guru, and he calls himself a guru in the magazine, which I think is always a bit strange, actually. But so he presents himself as a kind of not as a kind of guru, as a guru. But the kind of philosophy that he's espousing, at least some of it, is it's completely opposite of what a guru should be talking about, I think. Because to the extent that the ideas within Enlightenment make sense, and some of them do, it's the usual stuff about, we are evolutionary beings, consciousness is quite interesting to think about, compassion is probably a good idea, social organisation would help us to be able to mobilise individual and collective consciousness better, those kind of ideas. In what could almost be like a classical Kantian Enlightenment tradition, could be, but isn't. So there's all that, but it seems to me that if what you're interested in doing is you're kind of mobilising individual intelligence, using as many knowledge gathering methods as you can to forward human progress, not on an individual level, because that takes hundreds of thousands of years, but in terms of evolution, but in terms of social organisation, finding ways to capture the wisdom of large groups of people, finding ways to get social organisations that represent justice and equality and all those kind of things, and liberal values, if that's important. Whatever the values are that maximise the potential that's implicit not within individuals, but in large groups of humans, if that's what your project is, then surely using an educational strategy and an organisational structure that really belongs somewhere in the 14th century, the idea of a guru, of a master who knows it all, and then you have to worship at his feet, is just paradoxical. And talking to people who've been to the Enlightentext seminars was actually quite revealing, I think, in some ways. Because I asked them what kind of things Andrew Cohen had said, and what was it like, and what did they learn. And the two people, I've only spoken to two people, so this is not a really representative sample, but the two people I did speak to were pretty much unable to tell me what they picked up. They were unable to tell me what they'd learned, other than the stuff you could pick up just by looking at the web page. But they were very insistent that you had to be there, that Andrew Cohen was a special guy, that you kind of feel the wisdom of him when you're standing in his presence. You know, all this classic guru stuff, really. And I have absolutely no faith in that sort of thing. Apart from anything else, it's very easy to construct situations in which those kind of effects are mobilised. You don't need to be smart or wise to appear smart and wise. And even if you did, that's kind of counterproductive if what you're after is to mobilise the wisdom of the crowd. So I just think there's something very odd and paradoxical and oxymoronic about that whole project, really. I'm all for enlightenment in the Kantian sense, not in the New Age sense. And I'm all for using evolutionary metaphors if that's useful to capture intelligence and to mobilize social forces to improve the quality of life for as many people as possible, to maximize the chances of life being sustained on this diminishing planet. You know, all those kind of aims which I think most people would sign up for. But I just think that having anybody as a guru, or using terms like guru, and the same goes for YouTube actually, there's quite a few people who call themselves gurus on YouTube. I just think it's completely anathema. I don't get it. If anybody can enlighten me on the role of the guru in the 21st century, I'd be fascinated to know.